What's up, y'all? Klugas here with another Work the Crowd Media short. Uh, gonna do this one on kind of the big elephant in the room. The Kentucky head coaching search. That seemed like it wasn't going as planned. Until it did. So let's dive into it. So let's start off with the candidates and who Kentucky fans, including myself, really thought it was going to be. The obvious names that were thrown out there, which let's keep in mind, again, are they a little unrealistic? Sure. But when you have a high profile job like this, you have to go after the big names first. And so the big names that we're talking about that maybe were unrealistic that you had to go after were Jay Wright and Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley coming off, well, not at the time, but is now coming off back-to-back national championships at UConn. Right now, you can pretty much say he's the best head coach in college basketball for one of the premier jobs in college basketball. You have to go after him. You have to try, okay? Whether you like it or not, you have to try. And then Jay Wright. Jay Wright's a retired coach that built the Villanova program from the ground up, is one of the all-time best coaches. You had to try. You just had to. So you can't knock him for trying. But then we get into the other ones. So then you had Nate Oates and Scott Drew. Nate Oates of Alabama, Scott Drew of Baylor. You had to try it. Those are probably your next two best options. Both of them said no. Okay. Everybody thought the sky was falling after Scott Drew said no. And I was one of them. I was like, okay, great. Who are we going to get? Then you had the Kentucky kid, Billy Donovan. That never really said no, technically. But the problem with Billy Donovan was you were going to have to wait so long to get an answer from him. And with the transfer portal already taking off, recruiting already kind of taking a hit with Cal leaving, you had to get somebody in right now that was going to hit the ground running on this. Insert Mark Pope, the captain of the 96 national championship team. Kentucky guy through and through, even throughout the BYU years and wherever he's coached. That guy is Kentucky through and through. And I'm not going to lie to you. First natural instinct, I won't say natural, but first instinct was, what are we doing? Why? And to me, it was, this has Billy Gillispie written all over it. And it honestly, the Kentucky reaction, immediate reaction, compared to the Louisville immediate reaction in the hiring of Pat Kelsey is oddly similar. Because when they hired Pat Kelsey at Louisville, every Louisville fan I knew said, "What are we doing? Why this guy? What are what are we doing?" And it was the same thing with Kentucky fans. It was, "What are we doing?" Now, sure, you had your diehards, and your blue-haired fans that were all for it because he's, was on the 96 team. They were all for it. But the majority of the fans, they were like, "What are we doing?" And it really, at first glance, seemed like we kind of just took the first guy that said yes. Then it started to sit, and then the press conference hits. The press conference hits, and there's 22,000 in the building at Rupp Arena. 22,000 in the building. That's not counting the 5,000 fans they turned down that couldn't get in the building. So we're talking anywhere around 27 to 28,000 people in attendance for this guy. One, that tells you have the backing of Big Blue Nation. Two, then we get to the actual press conference itself. And oh my God, there was a tweet that I retweeted that couldn't have been more true. It said, "It seems like we traded in being cool for getting our soul back." And that's exactly how I feel now. I feel, listen, what Cal did for the program. Actually, as it just went official, Kentucky just lost another recruit. Billy Richmond is gone. But as great as Cal did great at a time in need for Kentucky basketball, when we coming off Billy Gillispie, coming off Tubby Smith, we needed a spark. We needed to rebrand ourselves. And what John Calipari did at Kentucky, nobody else could have done. Let me get that straight. For him to bring in the amount of talent that he did, year in and year out, and win with that talent, with freshman talent every year, is amazing. Now, when I say win, obviously it only led to one national championship. But to essentially replace a team every single year and still win 22, 23 plus games every year, that's something you can't take away from Cal. That takes talent. Okay? The amount of kids he put in the NBA, that was a fun ride for Kentucky fans. The problem is that's all we relied on. And that's where Cal had to go. We, instead of being the University of Kentucky, where we worry about hanging banners, we turned into the school of we're more worried about what kid we can put in the NBA. And at a school like this, that's not your number one concern. And that's why Cal's time had to go. It was time for Cal to have a fresh restart, and it was time for the university to have a fresh restart. And like I said, after the press conference where Mark Pope made it known that we're going to play for the jersey name on the front and not the back, it really hyped me up. It really did. And it really made me change everything that I had thought about Mark Pope. Okay. I have full faith. When you go watch his offensive scheme, when you go watch how his team works, it's literally the blueprint of what Kentucky fans wanted out of John Calipari. And I am super excited. I can't wait to see what he does. Obviously, we're still waiting on the decision of Reed Sheppard. I fully expect him to go to the NBA draft. I'm not going to be one of these delusional Kentucky fans that tells you he's coming back. I do think there's a chance. I think hiring Pope gives you a good chance, but I think he's gone. Dude's a top 10 pick. It's going to be kind of hard to turn that down. So, I'm very excited for the program. Excited to see what we do going forward under Mark Pope. And I'm honestly, even from the other side, I'm excited for Louisville as well. I really like Pat Kelsey as well. I'm excited for both schools, and that's what's going to make this rivalry even better when both schools are good, and that's what we want. I don't like, even as the Kentucky fan, I don't like just beating the brakes off Louisville every year. I want it to be competitive. I don't want Louisville to beat the brakes off us. I don't want Kentucky to beat the brakes off Louisville. It needs to be competitive. And that's the way I think we're about to go. Maybe not year one, depending on how, year one goes for both schools. But going forward, I fully expect this rivalry to be back. And I am here for it, and I am excited. So that's all I got for this. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube. Let us know what you think. And signing off.